So data tells us that from the end of 2021, I guess, up until now, through about March or April, 1/4 roughly of Quebec's population actually contracted COVID. Now we're starting to find out, we talked about, remember at the beginning of this, we were talking about building up antibodies, would that protect you, when we were talking about vaccines. So it looks like those antibodies are being, now anyway, happening. They're now being, as for people who've had COVID, they show up, they're there. Question is, do they protect you? And what about that fourth booster? Will you need it? Dr. Gaston de Serres is a medical epidemiologist at the INSPQ. He's also a member of Quebec's immunization committee, and he's on the line right now. Dr. de Serres, thanks for the time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Explain to our audience, if you could, what exactly this means. The fact that all these antibodies are being developed, this obviously is a good sign. It means people have protection.
It mostly means that people have been infected since the beginning of December. So this was a study done to assess the size of the fifth wave, so the Omicron wave. And so during that period, what we saw is that about 1/4 of the adult population was infected. In terms of protection, this study doesn't say much about that, but we're currently doing studies to assess how protective an Omicron infection was against the BA2, which is the virus that causes the sixth wave that we're almost ending now. And the preliminary results are quite positive in that sense, and they are showing good protection. But we have to finalize the analysis before being clear about the conclusion. But it is quite interesting to see that people who have been infected appear to be well protected against reinfections.
So the question, I guess, that comes from that is, how long does that protection last?
Yeah, well, that's the real question, and the answer to that is not as straightforward as it should, because the big unknown is what will be, for example, the virus that will circulate next fall. If it were the same virus as we currently have, we would expect that most of the protection would remain active. But if the virus changes substantially from what we have now to what will circulate next fall, then the level of protection is unclear. But in general, what we've seen in terms of reinfections is that a first infection does protect very well against severe outcomes, so hospitalizations, and in general, that protection is well maintained.
Okay, and in this same study, I understand, so we're talking about 1/4 of Quebecers, 1/3 of Montrealers, I believe, and I think it was 70% of 18 to 34-year-olds all had the virus from Christmas until the spring. So I'm wondering about the role of boosters then. We've certainly heard less talk about boosters lately. Is that because perhaps they're less necessary?
I think that lately the role of booster has been probably not emphasized as much, because we're at the tail end of the sixth wave, and if you receive a vaccine now, the benefit of that booster dose is much smaller than compared to what it would have been should you have received that dose, let's say, mid-March, and then be protected by this dose for the sixth wave. Now we're probably we will probably have little COVID activity during the summertime, as similar to what we've seen in the past 2 years, and even the first year when there was no vaccine at all, we saw minimal activity during summertime. So we can expect that this summer will be quiet, and that next fall will be when COVID-19 will increase again. How much will it increase? Will it cause as much difficulties as we've seen previously? That's very unlikely. But clearly, the major unknown to decide what will be the impact of COVID next fall is the virus itself, how much it will have changed at that time.
Do you look to other places around the world? So when you're talking about how this will evolve, right, will other places, we know we were not first, obviously, when COVID first happened. We kept looking to Italy, for example, where they went through a terrible phase at the beginning of COVID. Are we looking to other parts of the world now to see how this latest virus, how Omicron, the latest variant, has evolved and into what next?
Sure, we're always looking at what's happening elsewhere because the next variant will likely come from other countries. We may be the place where a new variant will emerge, but that's given the population size of Europe or the U.S. or Asia, these are the places where the next important variant will probably emerge. Having said that, clearly from what we've seen since the beginning of the pandemic, in general, what happens in Europe happens also in Canada shortly after.
And so I'm just thinking about how in the community, like just a matter of weeks ago, again, it felt like if you didn't have it yourself, someone else had it. So as you mentioned, we're kind of entering that cycle where that should start to calm down. It also does seem to be less and less severe on the whole, and yet the deaths and hospitalizations have still been particularly high. If and when it does come back in the fall, what do you anticipate in terms of deaths and hospitalizations, Doctor?
Well, I think it's important to go back to the data you just mentioned. The transmission of COVID-19 since mid-December has affected mostly the younger individuals. When I say younger, I would say younger than 60, and obviously people who were between 18 and 34, for example, were more affected than older individuals within this whole adulthood. And this is not the age group where you see most of the deaths. The deaths are occurring in older individuals, more so over 80 years of age, but some between 60 and 79. The fact that we had so many individuals who were infected since mid-December will certainly create a sort of a barrier to the transmission. At the present time, the sixth wave is quite unique because it now goes down, the transmission goes down, quote unquote, naturally. So it's not because in the first 5 waves, when the wave went down, it was because the public health measures were imposed to the population to stop transmission. It was not stopping by itself. It was artificially stopping because of the public health measures. With the 6th wave, the one that we're currently finishing over the next few weeks, it decreases because now the virus doesn't find as many susceptible individuals. And so this natural immunity created by the large number of individuals who have been infected and those who have been vaccinated will likely be present also next fall. How effective will it be? Well, that will depend upon how much the virus changes from now to the fall period.
So I know it's probably a fair question to ask. What are you anticipating in terms of a change? And as I said, I know that's an unfair question to ask, but I kind of think back to the common flu, where every year we have a different vaccine to deal with a particular strain that year. What do you expect happens in the fall as far as COVID is concerned?
Well, COVID has been a quite particular virus in the sense that what we have now compared to what we had at the beginning of the pandemic is very different. You've heard about this reproductive number, which is the average number of secondary cases caused by a case at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was in the range of 2 to 3. Now the transmissibility of the virus has increased enormously, and the reproductive number of the BA2, which is currently circulating, is in the range of 10 to 12, so much more transmissible than the initial virus. And this is quite different from what we see with influenza. With influenza, we have a changing virus, but it doesn't acquire a much higher transmissibility from year to year. So it's hard to predict exactly what will happen with the coronavirus. The changes are a game. Are a number game. If you have many individuals who are infected, the virus will acquire more mutation than if you have a small number of individuals being infected. So the speed of this transformation of the virus will depend upon the number of cases worldwide, not only in Canada. So this is where, the surprises may come, because clearly could it be a virus that will be, again, more transmissible or more virulent, causing more severe infections, or capable of escaping immunity better? All these three characteristics may happen with new mutations, and during the first 2 years of the pandemic, the virus has been very effective at acquiring those mutations.
Wow. Lots to take in, lots to still consider. Dr. De Serres, thanks so much for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Bye.
Dr. Gaston De Serres, medical epidemiologist. He's also on the Quebec Immunization Committee. Still, I think, safe to say, more that we don't know than we do know.